You're probably staring at a dozen DJ controllers online, wondering if you're about to drop good money on a piece of gear that sounds perfect on paper but ends up feeling like a mismatch for your style. You've heard the hype about motorized platters and pro-grade faders, yet you also know that the wrong controller can turn a promising gig into a headache. That hesitation is real, and it's why I'm breaking down the Pioneer DJ REV7 the way a gig-ready DJ would know. Glossy spec sheet. Just what matters when the needle drops. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the environment this controller is built for. The REV7 is marketed as a battle-oriented deck, which immediately tells you it's targeting DJs who spin vinyl-style mixes, scratch-heavy sets, and want the tactile feedback of a real turntable without the maintenance headaches. If you've ever tried to simulate that feeling on a jogwheel controller, you know the difference is like comparing a rubber ball to a solid steel one. The motorized platters on the REV7 actually spin at the same speed as a 33 revolutions per minute or 45 revolutions per minute vinyl record, so the resistance you feel when you nudge the record is genuine. In a live battle scenario, that resistance translates into more precise cueing, tighter beat matching, and the confidence to throw in a quick backspin without the platter feeling floaty. For a DJ who's been practicing on traditional vinyl or even on a non-motorized controller and feels something's missing, that is the first major value point. Now, let's get practical. Imagine you're setting up for a club night where the crowd expects rapid, razor-sharp cuts. The REV7's Magvel Fader Pro gives you a glide that feels almost buttery when you pull a fade from one channel to the other. Because it's a magnetic levitation fader, you're not fighting against a stiff mechanical spring. The fader returns to center quickly, which is a lifesaver when you need to execute a surprise crossfade in the middle of a battle. In my own test sessions, I found that the fader snapback helped me keep the energy flowing without having to watch my hand, to make sure it wasn't lagging, something that can ruin a set if you're trying to stay on the beat while the crowd's already moving. The see your set visual feedback is another feature that quietly saves time. When you're juggling 4 decks and a bank of hot cues, it's easy to lose track of where a track is in its waveform. The REV7's built-in display mirrors what you see in Serato DJ Pro, showing the waveform, beat grid, and cue points right on the controller. In a real-world gig, that means you don't have to keep glancing at a laptop screen that can get knocked around or obscured by stage lighting. I set up a mock gig in a small club and found that having the waveform right under my fingertips cut my cue point search time by at least half, which kept the flow tight and the audience engaged. But no piece of gear is without trade-offs, and that's where the decision matrix gets interesting. The first thing most buyers notice is the price tag. The REV7 sits in a premium bracket, which is justified by the motorized platters and the professional-grade fader, but it also means that a hobbyist who spins at home on a laptop might feel the pinch. If your setup is primarily for bedroom practice or occasional streaming, you could get a solid jogwheel controller for a fraction of the cost and still deliver decent mixes. The REV7 is really built for someone who plans to play live, travel with the unit, and demand that the hardware feels like a traditional turntable. Another consideration is software lock-in. The controller is designed as a Serato DJ Pro Powerhouse. It integrates seamlessly, mapping every button, fader, and platter without the need for manual configuration. That's fantastic if you already own a Serato license or plan to use Serato's ecosystem for its track analysis and cue point management. However, if you're a Rekordbox or Traktor fan, you'll find the out-of-the-box experience lacking. There's no official support for those platforms, which means you'd have to rely on third-party mapping or accept limited functionality. In short, the controller assumes you're on the Serato side of the fence. Weight and footprint also matter when you're loading a case for a gig. The REV7 isn't the lightest controller on the market. The motorized platters and solid chassis add bulk. For a DJ who's constantly hopping between venues and prefers a backpack-friendly unit, the extra heft could become a nuisance. Conversely, that same heft is what gives the controller a sturdy feel on stage. It doesn't wobble when you slam a scratch or nudge the platter aggressively. If you're the type who likes a stable platform that stays put even when you're moving around the booth, the weight works in your favor. Let's talk about who should definitely consider the REV7. If you're a battle DJ who competes in turntablist contests, a club DJ who wants the tactile,